Alright folks, my name is Freyn and welcome to the T95. This is an American tank destroyer at 7.0 and possibly the single most team dependent tank in the game. Also pretty map dependent as well. By team dependent I mean that your entire performance, not just victory or defeat, but your entire game performance is highly likely to depend on how good your teammates are. If your teammates are too bad, you're generally not going to get anything done. If your teammates are too good, you're generally not going to get anything done. I'll explain a little bit what I mean by that as we go through the game, and hopefully see what I mean by that as well. Now, for this first of three games, I am on 38th parallel to almost full up tier at 7.7. I'm just driving down towards the sea point. Encounter an AMX-30 there who's pushed forwards quite rapidly. He's obviously not noticed me, so take him out. And spy T95 over there. So knocking my distance control up to 600. Just in the hope that I could aim directly at him with the binoculars, because I can't see him in the scope. Fortunately, I seem to have now lost track of him in the binoculars as well, so I took a guess shot, ended up getting his track there. Press forwards until I can see him. Take another shot and yeah, just hit ever so slightly too high, and we end up with a ricochet due to the angle of impact there. Really, I should be aiming slightly on the low side if I'm not entirely sure of the range, because then there's at least a chance if it does deflect, it might shot trap instead. But still, that's another opponent removed, and I'm pushing on down towards the sea cap. There's no way I'm going to get there before this is taken already. We have teammates on it, but in the meantime, spot a PT-76. Knock him out. Obviously, it's a very thin armoured vehicle, that one. You do get an over-penetration, but generally not an issue. Skipping forwards, there'll be a lot of that in this. The T95 is an incredibly slow tank, so there's going to be, in any game of it, a lot of long, dull periods where you're just driving backwards and forwards. But you can already see here some of that that I was talking about, to do with your team's ability being more effective than your own. Being a vehicle this slow, I had left the C point to come over towards A because we had a lot of our team at C and nobody was really making an effort to move. I got about halfway here and then my team decided to come to A because they weren't getting any action. They all arrived at A before me, cleared it, and I encountered nothing. But now there is an AMX-50 in the river here. He's just taken out the tortoise. I would have liked to have helped the tortoise, but again, simply too slow to really move into position. But AMX-50 drove out, he didn't notice me in time. And once more now, skipping ahead, I'm back at C. See, I arrived just too late to kill the tank that was here. It was an IU-251. I'm still crawling into position. Again, players came from A back to C. Some died and drove back to C long before I arrived here. The T95 it's fairly beginner friendly, and so a lot of people do like it because it's not the easiest tank to die in. It's very difficult to get yourself overextended into trouble. It's very difficult to be penned from the front, and it's got a good gun, so it can quite reliably survive, but you're never going to get any standout games with it. When I say you're at the mercy of your team, you find things like this. I don't have the speed to push forwards here. I basically have to wait for the opponent to kill my teammates and then drive into my line of fire, like that. Typically with a tank like this, two things will happen. Either you will advance up along with your team and they'll simply clear the area before you get there, or you'll advance up with your team and they'll all die before you get there and you'll find yourself alone, which as a casemate tank destroyer is not good. Now, here in third person, I can clearly see something sticking its front out around these rocks. When I zoom in, there's actually a rock there, but you can see it just slither in, take a shot, and not something you'll see every day. Cupolaring a PT-76. Very thin target. But we're on to clip 2 now. This is Kursk, and it's 7.7 again. This is actually footage from patch 1.75, some of the last footage I've got. But nothing has changed with this tank in the time between those two patches. So it should perform pretty much exactly the same. Now we're already 3 minutes in here. That's how long it's taken me just to climb up to this ridge line. And you can see there's 2 mouse and an AMX 50 Seabass over there. Now, take a shot, hit the Seabass in the turret and knock him out. It's not incredibly common to one-shot them, but if there's going to be any shell that does it, it's APHE. And this T95 has a 105mm gun, so it really kicks out some good damage there. Now, oddly, considering how large it is and obviously how far you've got to crawl, Kursk is actually, I think, one of the best maps for the T95. It's hard for you to get flanked because you can see pretty much where everything's coming from. The fact that you can't get there very quickly doesn't really hinder your ability to put out damage, because you can see all your opponents from a long way away. And your frontal armour is basically never going to take damage. I think I've personally penned a T95, even with Heat FS, maybe once from the front. And it wasn't a shot I managed to hit again in that game, so I wouldn't really worry about it. We've just had 2 horrible shots in a row there. One on a reserve tank that managed to go in and out the other side without causing any damage. It did fuse, but simply didn't do anything. And the second, in this case from Object 906. Managed to finish him off eventually though. I've been detracked. Now, the repair time isn't terrible, but obviously without a turret, every second is going to be potentially bad for you. Fortunately, the little reserve Panzer III drove back into my line of sight. Didn't have to turn anywhere to get a shot on him. It's not exactly a threat, but yeah, you take all the kills you can get in this game. I'm not really concerned about either of the mouses that are shooting at me. They've got no real hope of penning me. You can see Tiger 2H moving along the ridge, so aim up. And you can see the destructive power in the 105 there. Hit in the rear half of his turret, still took out the whole crew there for a one-shot. But there's a 10.5 Tiger down the ridge from me, so I'm going to back up, reduce the chance that he can get around the side, and mean I don't have to turn as far to shoot him, exposing my side to someone else. Eventually making it back. Now got a Panther 2 as well. Not my best shooting for this. First over the top, and then changing to the AP shells. They've got a lot more penetration. It's about an extra 30-40mm, I can't quite remember. I was just thinking, well, that should help me get through his front. He has instead turned side on, and I ended up overshooting again anyway, so sort of a waste of time there. I would like to advance down to this 10.5 ideally, but it's unlikely to work because he can simply run a ring around me. He can hide below the ridge and wait for me to sort of sit there and get into a stalemate on the other side. So really I just sort of need to fend him off and make him think twice about pushing up. Whether I'd like to push him or not, it's simply not the right move here. We're not doing great in terms of victory as a team. Things aren't going particularly well. And it's honestly very hard to really affect the game as a T95. You can have good games, you can have bad games, but you're unlikely to really have a big impact on the outcome. So I'm just trying to sort of be a decoy, be bait, be a punching bag, whatever I can to just distract them from shooting at my teammates and hope that everyone else can get the cap control. We've still got the mouse up there, still got this Panther 2, and we've still got this 10.5 Tiger as well. And they're all holding me up from being able to advance, which isn't great when you can only advance at 13 kilometers an hour. It's not like I can pick them off and then quickly close the gap to a cap. But let's skip forward again. And we're now losing the B point, unfortunately. Everything that went out in that way died. Hit little AMX-30 DCA. I'm not really taking out hugely threatening targets this game. You know, high kills or not, most of the stuff I've shot has been a little on the weaker side. Still potentially able to kill me if they get behind me. Hopefully that should never happen. As said, Kursk is one of those maps where I can actually see things closing the distance and have a good chance of being able to turn to face them before they get there. Still got this Panther 2 up on the ridge. Just double check that the 10.5 isn't peeking, as he's the more immediate threat. Not having great luck with my my accuracy on this Panther. I'm not really landing my shots properly. And once more, a rather low threat target over at the B point. I've no idea what this player was thinking, but Panzer 35T down. We've finally made some advance here. I figured I just have to go for it, I can't afford to wait. Friend is distracting the 10.5, so I know he's not going to shoot me in the side. I can turn, just arc a shell over the ridge and put one into his rear. So that's finally got rid of him. The game is a loss, but hey, 7 kills, even if some of them were slightly low-level opponents. I'm pleased with it. It's, you know, a better game than I'm used to in the T95. Sadly, it couldn't end on the same happy note. But let's forget the suicide bombers and move on to clip number 3. This is a full down tier on Normandy, and a very different game to either of those previous two. I'm choosing to push up. Most teammates that came this way are dying off, which isn't great. But I just spotted an AMX-13 off to the side there. Can't quite get the gun down, so we'll use a bit of gun rock as I reverse. I probably should have gone for the Tiger 2H instead, but a kill is a kill. The 2H is now left, so we'll go back and try to advance. I'm not here to go to the monument, oddly. It's just the straightest road I can find where I'm less likely to be you know, attacked in the sides, and I've got teammates around me, which is what I need to protect those flanks. Unfortunately, they weren't really paying the most attention. There's an IS-2 behind us. I just heard him fire. Nobody else seems to be turning for him, so I'm going to have to rotate. It actually turns kind of quickly for how slow it is. But I eat a Ferdinand round in the back for that. This is why you don't really want to be having to turn around with a casemate tank destroyer. It's not going to go well for you. IS-2 is actually out of my gun arc. I don't think he realised that, fortunately. But I'm in, I'm in trouble. This STA to my right is trying to take care of the Ferdinand, but how much you can actually do against it is, well, that's another question. Almost repaired and hoping I can maybe go put some pressure on this IS-2, but 1 second to go. I'm on fire. So let's try and slowly roll it forwards. I am a very low target, and there is still this sort of plinth on the monument there, so I have a vague hope that it might be able to block him from shooting me. I might just get away with it. There is an alternate problem though, that the further forwards I roll, the easier it is for this IS-2 to try and get around me. Yeah, changed my mind on the repair. The Ferdinand's repositioned and now still seems to have a shot on me, so take off the repairs again, keep rolling forwards, try and draw someone's attention to this IS-2. That's about as far as I can get. Actually put myself out of gun depression, so again, I might have made things worse myself, but we'll sit and repair. And as I said before, this tank is completely at the mercy of your team. There was the potential for my team to be good enough at the start to simply drive along this road ahead of me, clear everything out, and I would get here with nothing left. There was also the potential for them all to drive along this road and die, leaving me to be surrounded. Fortunately, it's gone somewhere in the middle. It's the ideal situation. Some have died off, so there's actually still some kills for me. But some are still alive and enough to deter the enemies from being able to just drive at me. And I'm repaired, I've got rid of the IS-2 and I'm pushing forwards. There is a constant choice to be made with a vehicle this slow. It's the same with the mouse, although that one suffers a little less due to being turreted at least. And that's that you have the decision of either stay back and wait, like sit back where you're safe and there's less chance of people getting around you, but knowing that if you do have to move forwards later on, it's going to be possibly too late, you're just not slow enough to do it. Or advance constantly because you need to do so to be able to get anywhere and find yourself in a bad spot. And it's really just more of a guessing game than anything else. In fact, we've moved forwards here. I've gone for that option. I can see a panther driving down this road, so I'm going to slowly creep out in front of him and go for his upper plate and bounce. Now, I have penned them before. I don't know which is the more usual outcome, the not penning or the penning, but I was unsuccessful this time either way. I'm going to swap to my MG camera and try and knock out his tracks. He's very sensibly gone for my barrel. I'm a slow tank. It's a pretty easy target. It's not easy for me to sort of wiggle it out the way. And I don't want him getting around my side while I'm on repairs. So I'm using my 50 cal, specifically the 50 cal targeting camera to make sure it's accurate, to go for his track and maybe try and cause some damage to his barrel if I can as well. But he's detracked, he can't go anywhere. Let's swap back to my now newly repaired cannon and knock him out. Now, unfortunately, with a tank this weighty, the T95 does not have a great reverse gear, so I can't really just roll back up towards the centre there. Better option, especially with so few opponents left, is to simply advance up and get in a position where I can see every angle of approach to me. To know that they're not going to be coming out the side of the town, they're not going to be driving up the beach without me knowing it. Even if I can't shoot them, as long as I can see them, it'll help keep me alive. So just pressing along the seawall. Ever so slight mistake here, I saw the plane coming, swapped to 50 cal camera, and then when the Panther turned up, I was not prepared to fire. My main gun is now in the air. Of course, in the T95, it's not quite such a death sentence for you when you do something stupid like that. You've got 300mm of frontal armour. It's unlikely to get you killed when you're facing something like a Panther. But yeah, I'm not going to say these are hugely typical of the T95 games. Honestly, most of the time you won't see quite so many enemies. These were better than average games, as all YouTube cherry picking is naturally. But it does show pretty much how the T95 plays. You're slow, you've got fantastic frontal armour, and you're you're basically just hoping that your team isn't good enough to take all the kills before you arrive, but isn't so bad that you end up on your own. And with a lack of speed, you often just end up bullying the leftovers, the AA. Yeah, finally, I would definitely recommend binding machine gun aim to a separate button for dealing with those little annoying light tanks that get around you. Here, an IU-251 takes out my transmission, so swap camera, aim up for his side, and there we go. That's all for today, so as usual, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.